Welcome back to GMP Scenario, presented by PharmaContentLabs.com, where we break down common GMP mistakes, inspection risks, and the small control gaps that turn into big observations.
Imagine this. You're in a quality assurance review for a critical report. The numbers, they look fine, but one simple question suddenly uncovers this massive compliance risk. The kind that leads to product recalls and serious regulatory trouble. So today, we're going to dig into how you can build a rock-solid foundation of evidence for your software and move way beyond those really dangerous assumptions. So the QA team asks a pretty straightforward question. Hey, where did these calculations come from? And the project team, they just respond with total confidence. Oh, the software's trusted. I mean, you've heard that before, right? It's from a big-name vendor, everybody uses it, it feels safe. What could possibly go wrong? And right there, that's the moment the ground starts to shift. QA pushes back with the 5 most important words in this whole entire conversation. Trusted based on what evidence? All of a sudden, that warm, fuzzy feeling of trust, it's totally irrelevant. The only thing that matters now is cold, hard, documented proof. And the evidence they produce? Get this. It's a glossy marketing brochure from the software vendor. That's it. This is the exact moment a tiny little question mark blows up into a giant, flashing red flag. A brochure isn't proof, it's a sales pitch. And to an auditor, it's worth less than the paper it's printed on. So, what was actually missing here? Well, pretty much everything that matters. There was zero internal verification to see if the software even worked correctly in their own environment. No testing for its specific purpose, the very reason they bought it. And no configuration control whatsoever. This software was a complete black box. Honestly, they were flying blind. This whole scenario just perfectly highlights this fundamental conflict, one that's right at the heart of GxP software validation, that dangerous and often very costly gap between just assuming something works and actually having the evidence to prove it. And you can see the 2 paths you can take laid out right here. On one side, you've got assumptions. That leads to unvalidated outputs. It's all based on trust and guesswork, and it comes with unacceptably high risk. But the other path, the evidence path, that gives you validated outputs. It's proof-based, and that leads to a much, much lower risk profile for your business, and more importantly, for your customers. So let's just ask the bottom line question, shall we? In a GxP environment where these good practices are there to make sure products like medicines and medical devices are safe, is operating on just trust ever acceptable? The answer is a hard, unequivocal no. It's not just some minor issue or a bad habit. It is a full-blown compliance failure. This is exactly the kind of thing that leads to regulatory warning letters, huge fines, or even getting your production shut down. Regulators don't accept trust. They demand evidence, period. And this all boils down to a really critical concept called intended use. See, it's not enough that the software can do 100 different things. You have to prove that it correctly performs the specific function that you are using it for to make critical quality decisions. The decisions that end up in an official GMP record. Okay, so how do we bridge that chasm between a dangerous assumption and solid as a rock evidence? Well, the answer lies in a structured, methodical approach. It's a simple, but believe me, incredibly powerful validation framework. It really all boils down to these 3 core steps: define, validate, and control. And listen, this isn't just some boring checklist. It's a logical life cycle that makes sure your systems are fit for purpose from day one, and, just as important, that they stay that way. First up, you've got to define the software's role. Is it GxP direct, meaning it's actually creating those official GMP records itself? Or is it GxP indirect, where it's, say, supporting the critical decisions behind those records? Getting this distinction right is key, because it tells you exactly how deep your validation needs to go. Next, you validate what actually matters. Look, this isn't about testing every single button and feature. It's about focusing on the high-stakes functions. Are those critical calculations spot on every single time? Are the right people doing the right things? And is there a permanent, unchangeable record of it? Can you trust the data when you export it? This is where you need absolute, irrefutable proof. And finally, you control it, because validation is not a one-and-done activity. You have to maintain that validated state, and that means documenting every setting, managing every update and patch through a formal process, and retesting any changes to prove the system is still working exactly as intended. And this right here, this is your paper trail. This is your proof of diligence. Think of it as your evidence package for an auditor. It has to tell a complete story, right from the initial plan and requirements, through the risk assessment, and most importantly, the actual test results. This isn't just paperwork, this is your fortress against scrutiny. Okay, now let's talk about the most common and frankly the most costly mistake in software validation. It's one that even the most well-intentioned teams make over and over again.
Here it is. This is the crucial distinction. A vendor's qualification is not your validation. Let me say that again because it's that important. A vendor's qualification is not your validation. They prove the software works in their perfect controlled lab. You have to prove it works in your messy, real-world environment with your unique setup for your specific needs.
And make no mistake about it, this is one of the very first things a savvy inspector is going to drill down on. They are going to ask to see your validation evidence, not the vendor's glossy brochure. They know this is where companies love to take shortcuts.
At the end of the day, what the inspector wants is simple. They want to confirm your accountability. Can you, with your own documented proof, stand behind the accuracy and the consistency of your data? The responsibility is 100% on you. The buck stops right at your desk.
So, what's the one question you need to take back to your team? The one question that cuts through all the complexity and gets right to the absolute heart of this whole thing.
It really all comes down to this. Is your software producing verifiable, objective evidence that can stand up to the toughest scrutiny? Or is it just spitting out data based on a series of really expensive, high-risk assumptions? The answer to that question will tell you if you're compliant or if you're in a crisis just waiting to happen.
If this helped, like and subscribe.